All right. Okay, guys, don't fall asleep. Cool. Listen up. Welcome to GIS Saturday morning. A little bit late with the schedule here, as in opening the doors and getting set up, but we're going to have a lot of fun. Everyone awake?
Yes.
I know.
What? Kind of awake? Okay, good. This is a somewhat 100% applied GIS class. That means that the theoretical part is given by lectures, and you read the book a little bit, and then there's in between, there's a little bit of theory about, hey, that's chapter 5, I think, or 6, it's spatial transformations, and basically saying, hey, if you have a football stadium, but you want to transform that into a baseball stadium, there's certain algorithms you need to do. And when I went to grad school, we had like book chapters that thick about the algorithms. I spare you that. Yeah, for me, it's more important that you recognize that something is wrong with your data just by visually checking it, and then later on with the data as in the text, like description, and then at least have one or two ways to fix it. Yeah? Because you always can Google what's wrong with the transformation, but you can't Google that knowledge of the workflow process. Yeah? Because if you've never been exposed, you gotta have that in mind. That means also when you look at the textbook, and be honest to yourself, like chapter number 2, which was a do thing, there's some tools like the fishnet generation that literally creates small little squares, looks like a fishnet. We are probably not going to use fishnet in this class. I definitely know if it's not part of the project, I'm not going to teach it. But knowing that there is a function in place that will produce a blank fishnet you can actually overlay on top of something like a grid, valuable information. Yeah? And fishnet helps sometimes to reduce panic attacks. All right, what we're going to do today is dive in review. We're going to skip the first one because I want to go through map design and the visuals. Last week we talked about visualization and we opened up story maps on the web. We did a very little GIS work. I want to catch up on that. I'm basically saying, okay, fine. Let's talk about how, in theory, this should look like. Then I will actually show you what I have done and a dear friend of mine in our past. The PowerPoint is called We Did Bad Things in the Past. Now, these are not wild pictures from your college times. Those are wild maps from our college times. And then we do just more like, and I have a rule of thumb that I don't give tests or assignments I haven't practiced or demonstrated in class properly. That's the reason why I actually have the assignment 1, not by its data, by its main steps. So I expose you to that because there's specific language we're going to change from, oh, let's put everything nicely together, versus map it out. Yeah? So that you get a little bit the lingo of that discipline. And so I want to move that up a little bit. We did bad things maybe right after that. So I bore you to death for the next hour, 90 minutes, and then we just mouse click until the bell rings and we need to run. Yeah? 10 minutes before 12, even if I wear a watch, 10 minutes before 12, if not quarter to would be best. You start yelling at me, okay? Because we need to be here out of here on time, if not 5 minutes early. So some of you have a 12:30 class, and you might want to take some refreshments or lunch in between to recharge your brains. Yeah? And you might actually end up in the Students' Union building and or at the Einsteins, or here's the Einsteins too, for getting something if you didn't bring food. So, welcome to 8 hours marathon. All right, when you catch it. Don't have to click again on the computer. Graphic design and principles. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go through very basics, 101 design principles, color coding, gotta get you exposed because rule number one in GIS, pink is not a color. So we're going to deal with this. We also have this, the three different types, what we call vector data. Those are points, lines, and polygons. Yeah? Point, lines, and polygons. We're going to dissect that later a little bit, as in like polylines are at least 2 points connected by a line, and a polygon is technically a polyline that is closed. Yeah? Those are the three main features we're going to deal with in this class in your GIS world. There's raster data, which looks like the funny looking weather maps. Yeah, if you look at the rainfall, etc. We are going to expose you for that, but the bread and butter for our class here is lines, points, and polygons. Yeah, and we did this a little bit last week when we actually had the roads, linear feature, a line, and the polygons have been, in this case, our census blocks. Yeah? So think about this, what representation of things in the real world versus how would you do that in a map. Like all the computers on these desks in front of you right now would be rather a point on a map of this room versus a square, a polygon. Yeah? So we've got to get into that. Light versus dark, believe it or not, yes. We have 50 shades of gray here. Yeah? High color value, dark color is representing the importance. Yeah? With the intensity like 10% to 100%. Duh, super simple, but if you're doing assignments, you gotta keep that in mind. Next part is the contrast. In the age of Instagram, everyone knows there's a filter for the contrast stuff, yeah? But if you deal with black and white print versus colorful print or maps, we're gonna make sure that you deal with the contrast settings the right way. Typically, we are not so much bothered with this inside the GIS, but you're creating a product that you will move out into a different container, aka maybe a PDF or a Word document. So you're not creating a map alone as a standalone feature. You're adding parts to the story. Yeah? You always have to have a caption and the source to a map. Caption could be a title inside or on top of it in a Word document. Best is if you actually say something about this in the following map. See figure 1, you will see the following facts. Yeah? Remember, you can do 6 weeks of GIS work. If you don't talk about it and just put a picture up, people will not understand. Bare minimum is the caption or the title to it. Yeah? So bad maps, not enough contrast. This is actually perfect, and this is blurry again, I think. It's absolutely perfect because you really can't distinguish where is what in that map because of A, the counties right now are too small in its display size, and the boundaries are too thick. So you blur this completely out. And you can't really see what is going on here with the light lime green to the dark lime green, not to mention you gotta take a look at this one later. Yeah? So if you play with this, that contrast is a little bit better because you actually change the color settings. Yeah? Keep that in mind. You do not have to take the color settings that GIS is offering you. You will see that we end up with pink and purple and pastel tones. Yeah? Once we drag and drop data in it or add data in it, it picks randomly a color setting. There are ways to avoid that, but typically it picks randomly a color setting. Alright, this is the important part. Message what's important. Focus on what's important. This short graphic display shows all the points and variables in your mapping project with equal hierarchy. Gotta break that down. Equal hierarchy doesn't work in visualization. You know? Because then everything is 12 font size. You know? Think about a page of 12 font size letters and you have one line with 25 or 36 size. Boom, it comes up because you changed the sizing of it. Here, in this example, if you want to actually point out what's important, you have a grid as an overview grid, could be streets, could be topography or something like this, like city plans where it says A10, so you can find the location. In both, here right now, it's kind of equal. If you want to push that to a focused area, that's what we call figure, you change the color settings. Same data is displayed, but you put the focus on those circles right now. Yeah? The grid and the squares turn into background information, giving you context. Yeah? It's like, okay, I could map out all the distribution networks for, let's say, bars. You did that. Yeah? I have dots all over the place in South Florida. If I switch off the background map, aka, let's say, aerial photography or the street network, this could be anything. And we don't deal with anything. We are dealing with specific things. Yeah? So, figure and ground, keep that in mind. Yes, please.
Speaking of drab, find drab color.
Distinct, jumping out, like in your face.
It's German.
It's German? Okay, this was a crazy week. I had so many comments about Germans, yeah. So, I had comments about Germans on national and international platform. So, I didn't make them.
Isn't it drab the opposite of this thing?
Thank you.
Really? Did I miss that? Alright, want to Google it?
Okay. I don't want to touch my phone.
Yeah, drab, opposite. Okay, reduce that.
One word.
Thank you. Okay, more coffee in the morning. Alright, bad maps, good maps.
Lacking brightness or interest. Really dull. Colorless, gray, dull.
Dull. Yeah, dull. Alright. Bad and good maps. Same data, same visualization, different setup. The left one is, let's put your data all together in your data layout. Remember, this is the first thing we did in the beginning last week. If you put all data together and you sort out the hierarchy, how it lists the order of display, that's the part on the left side. And a few mouse clicks later, you will see, okay, good map. We have the background information, ground information, yeah? And then you actually put the figure up, the most important part. In this case, I think it's crime data. Yeah? And you even set different color tones and different symbols, yeah, for the type of crime in that case. Yeah? There's also a whole thing, we'll come in a few slides later, about industry standards like symbols for industries. Yeah, there's a mapping standards how you would display in certain countries, or certain countries that are somewhat different, how you would display, let's say, a church. It's like a rectangle with a small flag on it. Yeah? Or it's not always just an X on a dot. Yeah? So in here they actually put specific industry-specific symbols up to that to display that. Yeah? Because depending on your audience, they exactly know what that means. Yeah? All right. Graphics hierarchies. Little trick, helps a lot. One of the tricks is figure out when to use the so-called outline. Yeah? We're going through this. We have not seen that yet. Yeah? When we deal with symbology and the properties of symbology, there's going to be the question, how are you doing with the idea of my parcels or census blocks? Do I need to have an outline or not? Yeah? Well, that depends on what kind of scale you're going to display that, and if it's beneficial to show distinct boundaries, or if you actually have different color settings here because you actually use graduated symbols in terms of 10% and 50%, reading it out from your data, and therefore you have different contrasts. No? we'll go through this. We're going to play a lot with color settings, and there is absolutely no shame about making it wrong today. Yeah? Yes, today we maybe find pink and put it on the map. Yeah? Same thing here, if you don't want to use the outline, you always can change the so-called fill. Yeah? You can fill that rectangle with a solid color tone, or you can actually create shaded areas, or overlays and all that. There's a whole library in the computer system for us, where we can dig this out. So we don't have to create wetlands or contaminated areas, warning signs, etc., because it's a standard for certain industries. We're going to take a look at that. So if you work with FEMA as a consultant, there's actually a library for that. If you deal a lot of environmental protection work, there is a library for that, what is a typical wetlands symbolism. Like it fills it out properly with the proper outline. Helps a lot. Gets a lot of confusion because you got to figure out how to do things. All right, Edward Tupke, great designer guy. He talks about the idea about, well, we had minimized clutter last week, and here minimized ink. Back in the days when ink was very expensive and you actually started doing maps hand-drawn. Every time you look today on your computer screen on a map that shows relief or topography and you see the grayish tone mimicking a mountain, traditionally that was done with crayons on pens. The German word is Schummeln. You sit there for hours on the baking paper, the Persian paper from the baking your cookies, and with trying to mimic those grayscales to present different slope. So today it's just a mouse click and boom, you have that in the background. Back in the days you had to work a little bit harder for that. All right, minimize ink also means in a classic way minimize work. Don't spend too much on it. There's a bunch of things you can do with one sentence or one map. Keep in mind how you present your message. Remember last week. Sometimes it's better to just show a bubble chart than a static map. Or the opposite, the Titanic story map shows you how to bring back human into the data of the Titanic loss. Keep that in mind, think that through. The more you think about the workflow and the way you want to build your message, aka visualization or map, the better you will deliver that product to your client, or me. Because then it's concise and thoughtful. It makes sense, it's not cluttered anymore. Keep that in mind. All right, a little bit cluttering here, not thoughtful thinking. This is a good start, but you will do better. I gotta keep you guys reminded. We haven't done stuff like this yet, so don't be judgmental about it, like I am. But this is going to be something we are able to do by the end of today. On the next week, you look at this and it's like, yeah, I can do better. Okay, so let's dissect this a little bit. What do you see here? Well, clutter, fine, yeah. What is on that map, on that slide?
Population for counties. Population for counties.
All right, one after each other. What do you see here? Alan?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the colors of counties are giving you the population of the county, and the dots are giving cities.
Okay.
It might be redundant, or, I don't know, maybe.
What do you mean with redundant?
Well, because the counties that have a higher population are gonna have more green dots anyways, so.
All right. Let's start thinking about this big one, Travis, yeah? Go for it.
All right, I'm gonna say like the difference in the size of the circle. You really can't see the difference because everything is kind of.
Okay.
And it's all the same color.
Yeah, it's the same
So-
color, so there's no
All right.
contrast.
might want to also look to the left because the contrast here is miserable. They actually adjusted it last week, but it's still bad. Alright, let's start from the beginning. Well, it's not there is here Kathleen.
I see data based on data,
Yeah.
given information on population based on the counties in that location and also the cities in that location.
Alright, so you came up from the top. What do you look at? We are looking at a map that tries to present the population of cities in the year 2000 for what? Eastern Seaboard, including with a main focus on Pennsylvania. Because Idaho and Utah is here and Florida is down here. So it's not the continental US, it's a section off. State boundaries is nice, we can see that. There's actually also the state name included here. And if you look carefully, there is something like whitish around it. It breaks actually here the lines. That label with that break of the lines here, that's what we call the halo. It's not like a computer game. It's more like the halo here. It's one of those things where you need to know that you click 3 or 4 tabs, check a box, and then you suddenly have your labels. That's called a label with a halo. And it helps you to have them stand out. What I would like to see on this piece is have that state name actually larger. Just in case, if you don't know that this is Pennsylvania. And, okay, we have a title, something here, source is not given, we actually have a name. We have map elements, that's part of what we're going to do. Map elements, that's the north arrow. One of the ways to symbolize that, the so-called scale bar. We actually have a scale text here as well that it shows you, in case you don't know how to read this, 1 inch is X miles, 4 feet, 4 yards, 4 meters. We can change that labeling. That helps us to convert that automatically. And then we have the legend, which tells us here, well, I'm a legend. Don't do that. That's one of the first things we're going to learn today, is when you put a legend up, we're going to kill its title. Because you could also say here, populations, or population by census plot, or population coming from census data. So I can read population of cities, I don't need to have legend cities population. However, here's counties and cities in that map. If the title says cities, why would I present the counties then? I can change, like Jarvis said, I could change also the sizing of my symbology here, which is going to be a graduated symbols. And pump this up, because what do y'all want to show? Is this like larger centers here, or do I want to show that I have a bunch of smaller cities all over the place? A little yes.
Could it be that he just messed up the title? He should have changed the title to population of cities and counties, and then he
yes,
the county.
it could be also that he was so ashamed that he changed his name to John Doe instead of doing 2 maps. I would say, you know what, this was a great thought, but why don't you set up this one as 1 map, and then do literally a copy and paste, or export the image twice. Once you export it as the cities, and once you export it as the counties. So you have the contrast, put it on a Word document on top of each other, or side by side, depending on the format, and I can look up and down and see cities and counties, and I get the feel, because the brain connects that. Here, it's terrible. Like, okay, do we see Long Island coming up here as pretty dark? Barely, because that 1 dot is somewhat New York City. Maybe. It's 1 million and greater. So that dot here, that circle, as Jarvis said, is 1 million and greater. This one is something like 100,000. Completely out of proportion. You had another point to add.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the state name. What if it covers some of the data? What would you do in that case? Like if Pennsylvania.
There is a tab we call conflict resolution. So you actually you can set up hierarchies, how, at which time, how many labels if you have a conflict. Let's say only one per item or multiples per item. That's going to be a painful endeavor. We will take a look at that. You can make arrangements. There's also what we call different labeling engines. The standard is usually very, very bizarre, and then there's Mapplex. We got to check this if we actually got the Mapplex installed now. You can also, Chavez, to finish this to the advanced level, you always can go in and create labels and then turn them into so-called annotations. And if you do that, you turn this text that's randomly placed, usually in the middle by its placement policy, you can now actually create that as an object and move it where you want. Because now it turns into, remember we said point, polyline, and polygon. Well, there's also another thing when we talk about mapping display, not data. It's called annotations. And then if you run a larger industry or an enterprise environment, you actually have an annotations database for that. Just to make sure that everything like Google Maps, all the labels you will see in Google Maps are actually annotations. Because it's also faster in the drawing and in the way of how you can store the data. Okay, another.
Yeah, another thought. Could it be that that the size, you were criticizing the Pennsylvania because it was too small, but could it be that he's using the same font for all the other states, and for example, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia? If you go bigger, and they're all bigger, then Maryland will run into West Virginia, or Delaware will run into Maryland.
So what did we do in the first session? What are we doing with the real world, with GIS? We are doing what? We are slicing and dicing the real world into layers. Remember? Yeah, like a layer cake. Okay. We actually have donuts. Cash brought donuts outside, so we're going to do a donut break after lecture to give you like a really healthy sugar, like calm rush. So the problem you mentioned right now is you see everything compressed, flattened, as if you do Adobe Photoshop. Yeah, flatten the image. Everything is compressed in one. Wait a minute, we are doing this in layers. Or you just look at one from the top right now. So who says that I can't do all the states, yeah, versus every state but Pennsylvania? No, every state but Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania on top. So in theory, I could actually put two annotation layers or labeling layers up. One big on Pennsylvania, and the other stuff is just context. It's background information. Just in case we avoid the continental drift and Pennsylvania shifts.
Right. When you do the layers, do you have to always do it in the same order or a certain order? Or you can change the order?
You can change the order depending on what kind of emphasis you want to give on your data. Because remember, GIS is Geographic Information Systems. You plug in spatial data and you create visual representation of information. That's the reason why we talked about last week about information visualization.
So it's not like if you're doing a project and you're in the 20 layers and then you, oh my God, the second layer should have been the 19th. So
yeah, we drag and drop it. Easy peasy.
Okay.
Drag and drop it. We did it last week. Maybe you missed. You better this week?
Yeah. No, I remember. I just.
Fine. Alright. Bad map, cha-chung. So, yes, clean it up. If the mission is to present the population of the cities, why don't you just focus on the cities? Yeah? Doesn't make sense to present railroad tracks in a map when you show bicycle paths. Polarized extreme example, but this looks a little bit cleaner. Still, the size is not there for the labels. Here for Pennsylvania, the legend is gone. cities is gone because you have the information about population of cities already up there. So redundancy for the brain is gone. Same thing here. Oh no, I keep that out for purposes. Again, now you can see Dover, Delaware.
I was gonna say, so you would keep the
Yeah, but
same color with the dot?
This is about junk right now. This is not about making the map perfect.
This is decent, man.
Yeah? Alright. Catch. Bad mapping. Too much. Too much additional information.
Yeah,
Here, still not great,
decent.
but better.
Okay, so this was.
C grade, B grade. Okay? I can translate that to him, they're like, okay, now I see. It's not great. Particularly in this case right now, in this example, all the map elements are missing. I don't know if this is 100 miles or 1,000 miles right now in this way. Yeah? So whenever I say map elements, north arrow, legend, scale bar. Yeah. North arrow, scale bar, and the legend. Be nice because we can rotate that stuff. We can tilt the whole thing. Where is north? Yeah? Standard looking at the map, or standard way of looking at the map is we assume it's north on the top bar. This is pointing north. Yeah, no. In Australia, it's actually south on top. Yeah? They have different mapping conventions. At least I was told by my cartography professor, so maybe she didn't think of it. But yeah, depending where you at, they actually show different north. If you look at the Arctica, Greenland, all that, and you actually show the magnetic North Pole in it, well, north is not north anymore on top. It's in the middle of the map. How would you do that then? So keep that in mind. We assume a lot of things. There's a reason why there are books called How to Lie with Maps. Because you map a little bit different symbology, or last week we did the example with the telephone connections, yeah? And you turn a complete different story upside down. Most currently heated discussion right now in politics, and I try to avoid politics usually in my classrooms. Look at the discussion what's going on with gerrymandering. And think of that as a GIS class perspective. So depending where I draw my line, I separate differently in sectors. Yeah? That's a GIS exercise. So you could, in theory, say, well, fishnet, yeah? Run a fishnet grid across the whole United States or any other country with these issues or challenges, and go in and say, just run an algorithm, maybe use hexagons. Everyone who plays computer games knows hexagons. Transit maps are using hexagons because they separate equally. Yeah? And just allocate votes, etc., and mandates based on an algorithm equally across the surface. Not going to happen. Yeah? But for GIS purposes, that would be the most perfect way. Yeah? So if you haven't learned anything in this class, at the end of, one takeaway of this class, not learning outcome, one takeaway of the class is, if you look in real life at, let's say, news, and gerrymandering is a heated discussion for that, but it's a perfect example. Look at how they do the mapping part. Look how they present the argument and what are the underlying geographic units, how they actually argue. They're all saying voting districts. They're not saying census blocks. Yeah? So in planning and then real estate and econ, we are building our models on population and purchasing power on data we get from the outside world. Census data and other retail data. Yeah? So think about that. There's a very direct link how you how you relate to the mapping versus the real world. Yeah? And you can lie with that easily. All right, let's Let's do a little bit colorful stuff. U is the basic color. Now there are different color models. That's the RGB model. Use all in print media. You have the CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And we translate that from different models. Yeah? If you're an Adobe Photoshop person, you actually have multiple other models, but this is the most basic one. Yeah? And then we have the value, where if you change the value, you will actually change the perception of that color. Yeah? What else do we have? The color wheel. I don't actually have one here, but we used to have, in Germany, we used to have a big one, and my professor would actually spin it. Really bizarre. But comprehensive color contrast, red and green. Yeah, and then if you rotate this over, you can actually see if you mix red with green, you would theoretically create all these colors in between. Yeah? Red and green is bad. Why is red and green bad?
You get brown.
No. Say what? Did I get it right?
What is it? I said because it hurts my eyes.
No, it doesn't hurt the eyes, but
You're talking about a combination of red and green? Or
no,
you're talking
red
about-
and green in general is bad. Why?
Because there's various,
Colorblind. What's the percentage of male in the US being red-green colorblind? I honestly don't know, but it's so high that you
Good question.
seriously, I don't know the current one. Yeah? But there's a fair share of males that are colorblind, red-green colorblind. Yeah? So you gotta keep that in mind that your audience might not be able to see red and green properly. Yeah, there are different other contrast issues in colorblindness. Yeah, I usually say I'm colorblind and I teach CS. So I'm pretty happy that I have the labels here. Alright, let's sink in for a moment. What I just said. I'm colorblind. And I'm really happy that I can teach CS with those labels here. It's 8:50. Ha ha. First joke of the day. Come on guys, wake up. I know, rough week. I'm not colorblind. No. Alright. I want you to keep in mind that wheel, because that wheel associates contrasts and partnering or neighboring color tones. Yeah? Depending on what you want to map, you might want to go brutal in the contrast. Yeah? Nice, not so nice. Yeah? Blue versus red, cold versus hot. Yeah? So by instinct, there's certain type of perceptions in the color codes. The other thing is green, walk, red, stop. So if you want to map something out, and you say, oh, this is dangerous, you probably go more with a red, orange, or dark yellow, yeah, to present immediately that there's a threat, like temperature, or chemical exposure, or something like this. Most recent examples, you don't map green when it's for rainfall, but if you have red or now violet or even purple violet, you got a problem. Yeah? The National Weather Service added purple to demonstrate the symbology of Harvey's rainfall, because they ran out of categories and coloring tones. So they added a new one to it. If you look at air quality, if you go into violet or purple, stay at home, even maybe switch off the AC if it pulls in air from outside, etc. Because the air quality is like breathing straight from the exhaust pipe. Comes from the guy who used to live in a wildfire country. So yeah, you don't do that. So the color wheel, super simple. It's like second or third grade painting class, you know. But keep that in mind. It's very helpful. Play with the contrast. Understand that there are color tones that are less intense, yeah, versus they have like a more cooler function. Yeah, blue is perceived as more cold color, and you can use them. My favorite editing color tone is actually purple. because it falls out of the ordinary or the regular setup. So whenever I do massive editing, the current edit session is in purple. So I immediately look at the map and then see, okay, what features are actually right now in the works for me. I judge pink, but I'm the purple guy. All right, this is important. Gotta write that down, at least in your own words. Monochromatic color scale. Monochromatic color scale as in one color. That means I pick one color and I change the value of it from 0% to 100%. With the increasing percentage of that color, I show a different intensity. Nothing, a little bit cold, super cold, very cold. Nothing, a little bit warm, burning hot. Monochromatic. This is perfect for increasing or decreasing values when I have so-called interval data. Like income. Well, I could even use categories, but I have income from $0 to 20 million. $0, 20 million, and I can break this down in those 5 classes a little bit later. This is the next big step what we're going to do, breaking down into classes. Right now we're talking about just the color settings. All right, monochromatic, one color graduated through the so-called color ramp. With the increasing percentage of that color.
With monochromatic, do you only use, for example, when you say that you change the value from 0 to 100, you just change the shade of that color, or you putting, like, you know how you can mix orange and yellow becomes green?
One color.
One color, okay.
Then you mix it, you pick the mixed color, and you change the value to present nothing to a lot.
Okay.
Yeah? One color, mono. Contrast to that is dichromatic. What would be dichromatic or dichromatic?
Just like two.
Two, exactly. Does it say on that? No. So in this case, 2 monochromatic scales join together. So one comes in with a lot and decreases, and why do you do that? The other one increases to a lot. Yeah? Therefore you create a mixing color in between. To give you an example, this is an extreme example because it's not really shown yet completely the mixing color. Dark blue for the decrease, dark red for the increase. Yeah? So now I can actually map this out and show where is what. Where is, I think it was wildfires. Yeah, forest fires. Now change the number of forest fires. Fishnet pattern, no topography, no base information around that. Just pick an example. And it shows you now that you have areas where you recently had an increase in forest fires here and here on the spot. But you also have been able to contain the wildfires here, and then therefore you have a decrease in the past 24 hours. Or the last week. Typically those maps are for the last 24 hours. Dichromatic, one color tone or color setting, going down to 0, and then you pick up the other one. The reason why this is so distinct right now from dark blue to dark red is because you have 5 categories that makes it easier to plug it in. If you would have 10 or 15 different categories, it would be more smooth transition. Yes, please.
But again, you would not use red, right?
Huh?
You would not use red, right?
For what?
You suggest you would not use red, right?
Why not?
Because of the color blindness.
It's red-green.
Oh, it has to be combination red and green.
Yeah. Google red-green color blindness, and you actually see those pictures with dots,
So you're saying that
and
I
you
can't-
will actually see numbers in it, because if you don't have, if you're colorblind, and that's a contrast color blindness.
Is there a chart for that?
Yeah.
So what you're
If you
saying,
Google that, you actually see different images.
so what you're saying is that we can't use red as long as it's not a combination of
Yeah.
red.
Be aware of the red-green combination. Because we call it red-green color blindness. Yeah? So, if you would be colorblind, you would see these as different grayscales. Yeah, more or less. All right, dichromatic, two color schemes mixed together.
What is the effect, I'm sorry, what happens to the person? Is it that the person mixes the colors, or is it that they don't see the colors?
They depends.
I don't think they don't see the.
You see in gray, for sure, and in the in the red-green, I think you actually have a gap. All right,
Okay.
it's just about 9 o'clock. Let's take a 3-minute bathroom break, and everyone can check out red-green color blindness, so we don't waste too much time on
I
it.
don't know how the heck they figured out that the deer is also colorblind.
Yeah, let's do the 3-minute break.
Did you get the hang of when you came here last night, the class? Do you remember everything you did? Because I did everything via video. I did everything via video. Yeah. I couldn't see anything because of the marker was very bad.
What do you do?
But I know that you guys went through a little practical.
At the very end.
I know there was a little bit of practical.
I forwarded all the emails to my Yahoo, so I get it in my inbox.
Yeah, that was fun.
So I'm afraid that I may have missed something, but you don't think so?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't think anybody
Let me
remembers
let
it.
me see if I even took notes. I did.
So you missed it, when was it? Was that yesterday? So we had the,
Yeah, I put it well, but congratulations.
oh, you missed it, it did not work. It was about a 70, pretty high caliber people in there.
What wasn't working? What wasn't working?
I said you missed it, the network.
Oh, never. Oh, okay.
Were one of your girls in there yesterday? I think you were, right?
Yes.
How you doing?
Good.
Do you like the were you able to kind of make some contacts and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
good.
try to get dinner too.
Oh, they did.
No, the guy who was saying that he
Should've
closed,
come-
he closed a really big deal, and I said, oh, that's nice.
Should have come to Twin Peaks with us. So we went out to Twin Peaks.
Oh, you guys really went?
I didn't think that was gonna happen.
Man, I got home at midnight.
I know the way people don't answer their phone.
Told my wife that I get home at like 8 and I ended up getting at midnight.
How long did the thing go for?
Well, the thing went up until probably
Like 9.
8 or 9, right?
Yeah.
It was
And then
about
after that
9.
we went to Twin Peaks and I stayed there until midnight.
I think it went over 9.
Yeah.
I think we left like at
Yeah.
9:20.
It was over.
Were you there too? I don't remember. How you doing? I'm Angelo.
His main story. Yeah, apparently. That's like,
Now, have we met before? Were you in my accounting?
yes, I was in construction, I was in accounting.
Oh, but I was in construction from the Keys.
I was like, did Angela, and then when you were here last week, I said, he dropped the program. It's not like he missed the class, but he didn't show up for anything.
My construction class, I did all the papers. I did.
Cyclomatic Map
He's not playing
Example.
about these 3 minutes.
As you can see here on the map, actually multiples. What we have here is different proportions from Allegheny County, Pittsburgh area. Now this is where the class data is mapped. I actually, by the way, I put the, it's about half a year old, should be the same because the book hasn't changed. I put the book tutorial data up on Blackboard. So you don't have to search on the web, on the Esri web page. You can download this and you can put it on a jump drive so you can plug it in here. I've not figured out yet how to install a gigabyte of data sets for everyone to practice. The recommendation is get a memory stick jump drive and run everything on these machines. If you are changing positions, then you have. I don't even know if it ports your profile from here to here into my documents. There are different ways to set this up. Rule of thumb is do not trust data stored on these computers. Typically in computer labs, they purge overnight. This one doesn't, because it would purge overnight or your GIS software is gone, because of the way it has to be installed here. But rule of thumb, do not trust the data storage here on these lab computers. Make sure that everything you do in this class, you will have somewhat a backup. And those USB jump drives sticks are really great. If you do a jump drive or stick, make sure that you attach it to something important so you won't forget. Like even a long, what do you call it, the hanger for your badge hanger. So you actually see it. We had on Tuesday we had office hours in here. He leaves and looks back to the computer and sees this little tiny dongle thing called jump drive. That's super small nowadays. I plugged it in. For the remote, my memory stick on the remote is like literally less than my pinky, and it would be easy to forget. So please attach something, even like car keys, keychain, or something like that. The more we go into the semester, the more data we are going to deal with, and we're opening up the whole Pandora's box called your project. The last thing that I don't want to see is 2 days before you do your final presentation, OMG, all my data is gone. Did you do a backup? No. Oh my gee, I can't help you with that. There's always a way to deal with this, but hard to take first, then help to deal. All right. So try to do this. I can't say 2 gigabyte is good enough or get a bigger one, but it should be fine for little examples because we're not dealing with the whole US, we're only dealing with little tiny snippets. Like just 100,000 parcels instead of all 700,000 in the county here. So we deal with smaller portions because you don't need to deal with the million data points, you need to understand what's happening with just 1,000. If you do a different scale in terms of symbology, you can display that with 1,000. You don't need a million on it. All right, display. Diagrammatic map example here from the tutorial data. It does have pretty much most of the map elements. If you look here, you have actually the scale. You actually have some explanatory data or examples, text, caption, percent change in housing units for Allegheny County, block groups. That's great because it already tells us this is not like the street block, it's like whole subdivisions, mile by mile blocks. If you look in our pattern here, it says percent change in housing units from 2000 to 2010. Percent change, it means I actually have percent here mapped out again. And you barely can see the decrease or the increase versus the decrease because of the labeling size here of the items. But what it will do is actually shows you like an explosion map, like a draw out, and it shows different areas in this map localized here as a focused area. Waterworks Mall, Southside Works is about this area. Here's the stadium. Southside Works should be here. What's the problem with this display right now?
Can't see the legend. Can't see the legend.
Can't see anything.
Okay, legend we discussed. Yeah, legend is a little bit too small for that. Yeah. But also I can see something like this is about 29 something, and crater, that would be here 0 because we are dichromatic. We're moving into another scale, and then can't see this. Yeah. 25 in crater for the red, and it's actually 60 and higher for the dark blue. Huh? So it's a little bit weird. So the interval setups, breaking points, are a little bit weird. What are you going to complain about this besides the dichromatic color scheme?
Like how you're supposed to tell the difference between 2000 to 2010? Like how do you see the percentage difference though?
That's easy because you have, let's say, some certain amount of people in 2000 reported, in 2010 reported, and you take that, express that change in percent.
Okay.
Yeah? That's not a problem.
Well, I can see the south side works, but I don't know where is in the map.
Exactly. I don't know where it is in the map. If you don't have local knowledge, which state is Pittsburgh located in? Pennsylvania. Did everyone know that? I have at least 2 or 3 foreigners in here, yeah, including me. Yeah? I know where Pittsburgh is, and I know where the Steelers Stadium is. Don't like them. So Pittsburgh, if you look actually downtown here, the little dark blue part, that's downtown. That's downtown Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know. Did you say that?
I'm pretty sure it's this, because I was standing there before. Huh? So, river actually merges here. That's the incline for the tourist persons here. But, all right, these 3 excerpts should be shown here somewhere where they are located. So this one was done actually in ArcMap. So we used 4 different so-called data frames. Remember, if you open it up, you see layers. You can replicate it multiple times. And then it was put into a poster in ArcMap on the layout view. This is when you see the whole page. Yeah? But what I would recommend is actually do this, separate, 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 and then actually draw lines, like where it's zooming out.
Oh.
Yeah, there are different ways you can do that, but we'll see. If you do a poster and you want to show an overview where's what versus close up, you gotta show a little bit the transformation from the overview into the close up. Where is this located? Like think about a map of this campus and a map of, let's say, the Fort Lauderdale area, Broward County. I would highlight in some fashion, pointing an arrow to it or a dot in the map, depending on the scale you want to show, where is campus, and then like here's campus, or Southworks here, here's South Side Works, and boom, this is the close-up. And so you can see this whole area here along the river is completely depleted. People are leaving here, and you have just certain cells and areas with an increase in population. Yeah? And the thing is, we don't know this area well enough to understand what are the thriving factors behind that population change. Yeah? And also, if you do 2000 to 2010, these are the 2 reporting dates by the census, you don't know if that was caused, all this caused in 2008 with the housing crisis. And in 2010, nobody was there anymore because they all foreclosed and moved away. So things to remember. This is not the perfect panacea, the perfect medicine. This is just a snapshot, and you try to explain the snapshot as best as possible. Cash, and then remind me.
Hassan.
Hassan, okay.
Hopefully it's not a dumb question.
The bottom part says percent change in housing units. It says 0, 5, 10, and then there's like a little space and then 20. I don't get that. Is that like a measurement for, that's trying to tell me what?
All right, let's go back. We had that in the other example of the map. Here.
Yeah, that, right.
So there are different compartments you can do, different sections. Yeah, it's different amounts of subsections. So the one you just said is basically show the smaller distances and then it jumps, but it's in scale. Okay. You might not, in that case, the scale bar is not always that black bar. It's also, it could be also just a regular line with markings on that line. So if you look at that, this is 5, 10, 15, but for reader easiness or friendliness, it's not listed, and then you go 20. So you can say, okay, all of this is 20 miles. Yeah. So in theory, and you can see this here, it's actually good mapping, not perfect, but good mapping. Because you have a zoom out area or close up, yeah, they actually put a different scale on this, so you can see now this area here is a 2-mile stretch compared to 10 miles here. Yeah? That's actually very smart. So you actually get the idea of the perspectives and the scale. Yes?
On these graphs, like how much do we have to pay attention to the scale part of it? Or is there like something that kind of puts it in? You know?
Test question.
That would be a perfect midterm question.
No more questions.
Midterm. Fun question. Do we have a midterm in this class?
No.
Okay. But it would be a great midterm question. Huh? It's 9:15 and another joke. Unbelievable. Now, rule of thumb. Good mapping shows the scale bar or the scale in some fashion. Yeah? In the visual document. Don't give me a sentence on 3 pages down there and say, oh, it was mapped in a scale of blah, blah, blah. Yeah? If you turn the page in the report and you look at the map, it should be clear what are you looking at, what's the main message, where the data came from. That's a point we sometimes disregard if you do census blocks. I would 100% assume that you're actually getting data from the census. If you deal with data that was calculated and recalculated by the county, you might want to say data source is the county. Some counties actually do data calculations for estimations. Scale bar needs to be on there. If you don't, you lose at least a point in your assignments as a missing map element. Then a scale bar that makes sense is valuable, aka I have here breakpoints of 0, 5, 10, and 20 miles. This is something my brain and my personal experience in space can relate to. You can guesstimate 5 miles. That's my commute, 7.5. It would not make sense if I put here 4.5, 9, and 17 miles on that scale bar. So depending on the scale you actually select in your map, like 1 to 25,000, 1 to 100,000, yeah, that scale bar here makes more sense. You can map out data with 1 to 333,000. And sometimes that looks really great, but the scale bar itself shows you 13 miles. That's something hard to relate to. You know, we try to trim down and cut down numbers and complex things to people. With whom did I talk this morning about wildfires?
About
you, I think. Yeah. So, came up last night, 2 days ago with the event. Wildfires. How do you deal with the numbers in wildfires? What's the acreage of wildfires or the burned lands this year? I don't know, because I shifted my research agenda. But let's say, to give you this example for relation of numbers. In 2012, the state of Idaho, Idaho. Where's Idaho? The state of Idaho burned 1.7 million acres of forest or rangelands through wildfires, most of them by natural ignition. 1.7 million acres. How do you relate to that kind of number? How many football fields is that? Who has traveled abroad from you guys? Someone was in Ireland before?
Ireland?
Ireland?
Oh, no.
Someone was in the Netherlands before? All right. Half of the land masses of the Netherlands got burned in one season in 2012. Half of the Netherlands, I think was a quarter or third of Ireland burned, and nobody talked about it because it burned somewhere in the wilderness. Has some eco impact. All right. Different way to count this. It's about 5 to 6 times of the size of New York City. 8 times of Houston, I think. That was the other comparison. So now I have this idea, oh wow, half of the Netherlands is gone. Again, it's accumulative. It's a whole summation of it. But think about that. That year, 1.7 million acres in Idaho, 360,000 acres, if I'm not mistaken, in Colorado. That year, Colorado was on every day in the media because they burned hundreds of millions of value in structures. Different perspective. So you got to keep in mind, if you deal with data, bring it down to your audience. If I would ask you 1.7 million acres, how many square miles is that? I don't know. It's not relevant. But now you have the picture of half of the Netherlands in your mind. Or a comparison of an area you know, Houston or New York. So keep that in mind when you do mapping. Be user-friendly, reader-friendly. If this area is located down here, show it somewhere. And if you just simply say, let's make this up. Can't remember where that was. That's the bend. Okay. I think that's the bend here. If you say, okay, you know what? I've just put a big B in it and a big B here. A, B, C, and I place 3 A, B, C's in the main map with a nice halo, so it stands out. And that's good enough as a relative position alignment. Doesn't have to be perfect, because you can't really see where is what kind of block group. But I get the idea, okay, this is in this area, and this is in the other area. All right? Color tips. Political and cultural, they have meanings. Certain color settings give us an idea of more friendly, less friendly. In politics, if you look at election maps, they are what color usually? Red and blue. Because there was apparently in the media sometime a random color selection towards that, and therefore it got stuck. Cool colors, calming, appear smaller or recede. Warm colors, exciting and overpowering the cool colors. Best example, cool color, blue. Because we grew up in Florida, that doesn't really work. But 40 degrees in Florida is dark blue.
For psychology reasons, blue gives you peace. It's a peaceful color. That's why a lot of companies use kind of sky blue or navy blue in their logos, because it brings.
Really?
Yes, that's why a lot of companies.
You know the logo of this university.
Yeah, that's why they use it. That's why a lot of companies that you see that use blue, for humans, it just brings relaxation and peace and stuff like that. That's why people use yellow or red.
Okay, I might have to repaint my office. All right. Cool colors. Blue as the best example in terms of temperature. Also, cool colors, when you look at marine mapping, they actually change that into darker blues because you actually have the depth. So, for some reason, blue is always a little bit down there. Heat maps. Rain maps. It changes. Red, in terms of warm colors, is the most extreme color we can use for really hot. So between the dark blue and the dark red, the instinct, or by instinct, the perception is cool versus warm. And keep that in mind, play with that. Do it and change the map on, change the data on the color codes on purpose. Negative values mapped in red, or actually positive values, how to say it. Negative temperatures, like cool temperatures mapped in red, doesn't make sense because you don't feel it the way. But I could actually say, okay, you know what? 40 degrees in Florida is now red, and 100 degrees in Florida is blue. Doesn't make sense, huh? But I could actually produce that visual. All right, keep that in mind. All right, symbolizing points. So we're moving from the general idea of visualization now into actually the specific geometry of what we deal with chairs. Points, polylines, polygons. If that would be a midterm, points, polylines, polygons. But it helps you to understand the data and how we sort it out later. Again, undifferentiated points here, but the good thing on this graphic example is I already see what's context or background, and I see my figures, aka what's in my focused area. That is the green dots right now. Do you agree? Yeah? Someone thought about that. It's a neighborhood or a certain block area, and you actually have the context as in streets or street outlines. Yeah? Sometimes it's called pavement, because you actually see not the street as one line, and you see it actually as two lines, the curbsides. Yeah? And you see in the foreground as the figure that we have certain incidents, because it's an example from crime mapping. All right. Then we could use the unique value symbolization and differentiate based on the data table. Each of the address here, each of these rows has a representation along the visualization here about our map. Yeah? Don't know exactly which one is what, but this guy right now here could be the first one. Drug dealing. Yeah? Burglary, could be down here. Yeah? So, the power of GIS is that I have a graphic representation, my shape or geometry, that is allocated in the map, because we reference real world coordinates. And then I have a data table attached to it, or how I call it usually is the Excel spreadsheet on steroids. At the beginner level of class, it's the Excel spreadsheet on steroids. So based on the nature of the call, or the code attribute as made here, I can now say, I can differentiate between those two types. Where are my burglaries and where's my drug dealing happening? So between this, oh, I have a crime-infested neighborhood, versus this, I have some really serious issues with drug dealing in one corner, and in the other corner I have burglaries all the time. Oh, we're not there yet. So again, differentiated points based on the code attribute. Those are categories right now. These are not interval numbers like 1 till 100%. All are categories, black and white, male and female. Children versus adult, student versus staff and faculty. Ever heard about noir? French word of black, noir, in social science? Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. This is how you differentiate those different variable types. Typically what we do with the GIS world is we think categories and intervals. Income, 0 income to 20 million. And everything else, everything is possible. Or I do categories, that is 0, 1 till 100,000, 100,001 till 200,000, and do $100,000 steps. That would be categories. But typically what you would do is like nominal is usually like gender, 0 and 1, male, female. Has changed. You would actually map out now other categories as well, in the appropriate way. All right. So this is one category we can use, but it's not done yet. Huh? Because this is by the address. It's showing you the location of that crime. Problem is, if they found something in your apartment, like that one TV, they will be back in 2 weeks because your insurance paid for that TV. And they get 2 TVs now from you. Or the car. I actually had a friend like that. Broke into the house, took all the little valuables like iPad, laptops, and came back a day or 2 days later and actually took the car. Because the first trip to the house, no joke. Serious, with kids in the vicinity and all that. The first raid was all the short valuables. They take it and snatch it. And then they took the keys, and apparently there are folks stealing car keys, selling them, and another crew is coming in and gets the car.
Oh,
And that's what happened. They literally walked into Sunday morning on the way to church into the garage, and the car was gone. And the first first break-in was done while my friend and the 2 kids, 1 and 3, just left the building for a little bit. Like literally they left the place. Yeah? So not a great story, but some humor. It fits here. We have locations with multiple reoccurring crimes. Yeah? Stereotype, drug dealing, meth house. Could be multiple times in a drug offense in that same location because they're cooking meth in that basement. Yeah? So now you can see I have the crime count by address. So 1 till 2. Clearly, I don't have to map 0 crime, because A is not there, and B doesn't make sense. We want to keep that simple. Yeah? And then you can say, okay, 3 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 till 16. So there's an increase in these categories. If you look carefully, it's 2, 4, 8, 16. So it adds up. Huh? Doubles in the ending value. But you also can see that drug problem in the south was really something going on. Yeah, that is my problem area. But here, those 2 spots, who would have known? Oh yeah, there are only 2 incidents here. No, it's 2 addresses documenting incidents. That's very distinct. 2 different locations with specific counts at the location. Let that sink in. Location mapped by category of crime, 1, 1. Or location mapped by the amount of that crime. I'm making up 1 and 5. Location hasn't changed, but the purpose of the map now has changed. Using size craterated symbols. Example we had earlier today was the map from Pennsylvania and population of cities. Same symbol scale. Well, like the type of symbols.
Shouldn't we use another color? Because you used red for one crime in the other.
Yes and no. If the purpose of this map right now is to state the amount of crimes happening at specific locations, it's perfectly fine. Huh? Perfectly fine. If I now want to differentiate not just the count by address, but the type of the address, do I have that? No. You actually would now change the symbol and or use a dichromatic approach. I would change the symbol. If you have distinct locations of crime. Right now, we don't have 2 crime types at the same location. That depends again what you want to show. Why would you show a differentiation between the crime types right now here?
Well, when I first looked, I thought it was just one of the types of the crimes because of the red before.
I think it's just general crimes, right? This is general, just any crime is there, right?
No, let's count crime at the address.
Yeah, both burglary and
But we're using the same crime data here.
We're not being.
We're just using we're using, instead of the separation by the code attributes here, burglary, yeah,
The
for red, and blue for, using blue for the drug dealing. What we're doing is we counted all the amounts of drug dealing at this location and came up that this is between 9 and 16 here.
It doesn't say drug dealing, it says crime count.
Just believe me right now, this is the drug dealing data at that location aggregated. Yeah? Again, if I want to show now, if I want to add that information, if I want to add the other variable, I need to think, how would I change this? So knowing that we did this in two different symbols, yeah, circle versus square, with an outline so you have more contrast, versus blue and red, blue and red. So I can do different things now. I could do the crime count by address for trucks and build a second layer. You got to think about this. Are you going to crunch everything in one layer, or build two layers that are, if you look on top, look like they would be flattened out? So I could do a crime count now by address for drugs and then for burglary, using the color code, if not even the symbolism schema here. Huh? And then it would be perfect. We're not there yet. Don't worry about it. Good question. Huh? So how do I advance the next element? All right. I used this example earlier. There are different points of interest with different industry marker styles. Like, we not always call those dots symbols. Technically we call them markers, because they mark a specific location. Because the marker is the symbol for that point. The point is the GIS stuff. The marker is how I want to have it look like. Yeah? A little bit finicky with the separation here, but usually students will say, I want to show this point and the symbol of this. Well, technically it's the marker. Yeah? But sometimes, again, depends what you do, just a simple red dot helps. Because if I want to do some analysis, I don't care if this looks shiny. Yeah? I want to see roughly where is my data located. I want to have an understanding on this area is nothing. I have one incident here, or one location of interest here. Depending on what I want to do. We're going through a series of what we call spatial workshops, or geoprocessing tools later. Yeah? I think chapter 2 already, the fishnet example already talked about spatial join, where you pull a data table into your map. If you do geoprocessing, like crunch the numbers, add, subtract, have multiple layers talk to each other, you don't do that with fancy symbolism and wonderful colors. You literally do that in purple and yellow and black. Yeah? Because what counts is the process and the outcome, not how it will look in between. It's like when you have big family feast coming up, like Thanksgiving. Well, it's like 6 weeks. A little bit more. It doesn't matter how your kitchen looks while you're cooking. The moment your in-laws are knocking at the door, or your friends, you better clean that mess up before. So that's the same thing with the GIS world. Be consistent how you work with your data on your computer, so you'll find it again. But for 2 or 3 hours you're doing something on the screen, it doesn't matter if it's yellow, black, purple. At the end, it has to be a monochromatic color scheme to map this out in a nice way, so your reader will understand. What you're doing, why you're doing it, doesn't matter. Huh? To make this more extreme, you could do all these maps in your pajamas or in your best suit for the next opera. I don't care. The map doesn't differentiate that. Huh? Don't get ideas. All right, industry-specific markers. I mentioned the crime, criminal justice example, crime mapping. They actually would come in with these kind of symbols. makes it easier to understand and see where's what. If you deal with critical infrastructure, that was recently again in the news with Homeland Security, there are specific mapping codes or symbol codes for chemicals and for warehousing, etc., based on risk categories. Symbolizing lines. All right, we got it to warn you guys. We have 3 different geometry types: points, polylines, and polygons. We are going through examples now for the next category. And then we have a third one. I want to take a quick break and I will click mouse clicks all day until 12-ish, or just before. All right. Barely see this, but there's actually topography here. Yeah. I mentioned earlier the incline. This is downtown Pittsburgh again as an example. The river comes and emerges, and here's the incline. So a very steep slope. Does this matter for the purpose of mapping just downtown? Probably not. So why would I present it? Huh? Keep it clean, keep it simple, keep it focused. Huh? So what I also can do is I present the outline of a specific area with a more contrast-rich line, setting the boundaries the proper way. Yeah? Remember we talked about contrast earlier? Now is the part. I also can say then, to give a little bit more information, you'll see this later, this is a screenshot here from the symbol selector. I can actually get lines based on specific categories or attributes in that Excel spreadsheet on steroids. I can actually give them different width. Width. Wide. Width. It's one of those words. With TH. So here you will see by instinct the what? The what? The what? So based on the width. It's so fine. Okay. I am a proud South German. That German accent will stick with you guys as long as I will teach you. Yeah? As long as you're going to be awesome alumni, this accent will stick with you. Thursday night during the award, actually at the end of the networking, bunch of alumni standing around, saying great things about my class, not so great things about my class. Yeah? But then it starts. Press the Z button. Zoom in with the wheel. I'm like, yeah. Okay, grades are done, I got ya. No, just kidding. And you will see, I will actually, the Z and the Z, I will differentiate. The British are easy because I say C and Z. Yeah? In German it's Z and Z. It's easier here, it's Z and Z. So, I'm okay with those jokes. So if you want to make a joke, I'm not offended, but be loud, so loud that I can hear it, okay?
What percentage graduated from your 3 or 4 years of in this MSRED? 10% and above, or?
Because of me?
No, generally.
I want to see all of you graduate.
So today, like, out of like.
I don't know. We have the unfortunate events that some students are not performing as they should. Yeah. And life cuts in sometimes too. So I have 1 or 2 students who didn't get the grades they needed to have. Like we have a system that puts you on probation if you don't get enough GPA points. So I don't know. We had 1 or 2 I put in right away, and they had troubles in the class. Like,
So in 3 or 4 years, 42?
I can't really recall a dropout that's a little bit too much information, in particular in a class setting, but I can't remember a dropout on working hard and not getting the grade you deserve. It had folks that disappeared or said they need to take a break and some came back, had some severe issues in life. Funding can be a severe issue in life too, as we all know. I had for sure one student who did not recollect my warnings about plagiarism. And the rule of thumb is if you get an F in the class, you repeat the class. Well, if you get another F in the class for plagiarism, you're out. So it's like in baseball. You can risk a strike, but you can't deal with the whole game. And we have again. It's. I don't know the percentage rate. To be honest, I don't know the percentage rate. That's Dr. Foley's thing. My thing is to put enthusiasm and energy into your classroom. Yeah? In all programs you will see across the board, not just in here, the university, this one. In all the programs you will see that there's a majority of the students coming in, they're doing fantastic and excellent. Some will struggle, they will do still fantastic because they learn how to deal with their workload. Right? And then you have some folks who thought that's going to be an easy ride and are surprised that they have to read 30 pages and they're not doing it. Fair warning, my site planning class. You gotta breathe that tiny book. Yeah? There's a reason why it's not 500 pages. But I want you to understand those 6 or 7 chapters for the midterm, you got to read them. And last year or a year ago, some time back, I had a student who started reading this a day before the midterm, or 2 days before the midterm. Dude, that's not going to work. Huh? So you got to work time management-wise, work a little bit ahead of time. Do those 2 chapters to read. Don't read them Saturday night after class. Read them before you come to class. To give you a perspective, I had one seminar when I got my doctorate. I had one seminar, 150 pages average a week. 3 to 4 students, 3 hours. There was no break. You walk in, 30 pages of a reading, 3 pages maximum of notes, and you'll be able to talk for 20 minutes, like you would be the author of that piece. And here and there's, in terms of expectations, here and there students are really going nuts if they read 50 pages a week. I understand everyone is working full time, has family, 1 or 2 jobs. All right? Sorry for that diversion, the rerouting, but Thursday night also expectations came up. So apparently I have high expectations, but I'm fair, which is a good thing. Huh? Okay, my expectations here for this class, work the book. If you don't have an installed computer at home on your laptop and you're still struggling, did you solve it?
Yeah.
All right. Those computers are multiple hours a week available to you. Even if the room is locked, go up front, ask to open, because we have open lab hours or study hours here. Tuesdays from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. 6 till 8, I'm going to be here. This is part of my office hours. The reason why I'm going to be here is so you don't have to walk in with your laptop or something else. We can sit next to each other. I can run the projectors. We did that on Tuesday night, sitting next to each other, Ed and I, and running things. Thursday 6 till 8, Friday 6 till 8. We got these lab hours here. You have the permission to kick out the 40 students making a party in here if you want to come in to study. Take pictures if you kick them out. Yeah? All right, displaying lines. Same principle like we do with the points. You want to present background and focus. Right now, based on the settings here, I get a feel that I have major roads going this way. Yeah? Like this is one of the famous bridges in Pittsburgh. If you're on this bridge, you can actually see the baseball stadium. Everyone's seen what was it, in the Tom Cruise movie, Guy Preacher, something like that? Jack Reacher. Check. That's the promenade. They had the shooting. This is the parking garage with the Andy Warhol, and that's the river bridge. Huh? For some reason, that's the most recent movie that actually shows that town. Yeah? They're industry standards, so they're predefined classifications if we want to use them. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. You will see that we are going to use like an interstate or highway line feature as for the symbols here, just to present different extremes, like we did this last week. Yeah? Just like interstate and all the lines went the same way, dark red. Yeah? So from thin, very thin black, dark red, to show the differentiation. Yeah? Then, we're jumping already into the polygons. Depending on the purpose of my mapping, building footprints, light gray with an outline. So I can see the distinct boundaries of that building here. Yeah? Versus I put them in light gray. Right now, this is downtown with all the buildings, and this is just the park and the two little pocket parks. Depending on what I want to map in the next step, this probably gives me more distraction than just putting a few points here on the map. But I get the proper background information or context. Yeah? So immediately on both, I will see, okay, fine, this is downtown Pittsburgh. But it gives you different levels of information. Yeah? Considering no outline or dark gray helps to declutter your mapping project. If you zoom out, like 30,000 foot flying over, you might also want to get rid of the outline because your display starts drawing more and more outlines, then it actually shows what is actually inside that film. Because if that building, that big right now, shows up like this, the only thing you see is fingers in the outline. You don't see the content anymore. Huh? All right, polygons the same way, different maps. So this is the continental US with the states. Yeah? You will say, yeah, there are the states. But it doesn't show that. Because right now here, I assign a subregion to each of these states. Groupings. Yeah? It's like I would select my students in this class and say, okay, who is Florida based or not? Picking on my internationals, like we are all somewhere coming originally from somewhere else. So I would have 4 or 5 foreigners on that. Yeah? I'm part of that category. All right. Just make sure that I don't disenfranchise my folks because of where they come from. Yeah? But then I could say, hey, Miami-Dade, Broward, or West Palm Beach County. And behind every name of each student, I could say origin or county. And I can map that up. Yeah? Or I can actually now say, summarize all the subregions and give me a count how many states do I have in Pacific, in the mountain, or in the East South Central area, if that is part of my research question.